Hey there guys, how are you? Welcome back to another awesome video, and it's time for another movie review. Today's movie review is going to be of Batman Returns. So Batman Returns is the sequel to the Batman 1989 Batman movie, and you have Batman back at it again, and this time around he's not facing not one but two villains in the form of Penguin and Catwoman. So this movie is once again directed by Tim Burton. He's come back to do the sequel. Originally, he didn't want Batman to have a sequel, but Warner Brothers, or there was stuff going on they were like, Tim, give us a sequel to this. And he's kind of like, okay, I guess, and everything. And before we get into sequel syndrome and sequelitis and that fun aspect about sequels, I want to kind of say the fact about one thing that this movie is different compared to its original or to its predecessor is the sort of fish out of water story, the outsider, the outcast. Because with Tim Burton movies, they tend to have an outcast. They have that one outsider that's different from the entire environment. It could be the character or it could be the environment. The environment is the outsider where all the people are sort of like in this weird world. Or you have the character that's in a different, he's the outsider, or the environment's the outsider, or there's somebody in a Tim Burton movie that's always the outcast, the weirdo, that sort of thing. And yes, one thing's for certain is that with what Tim tried to do with Batman is he made him kind of like the outcast a little bit. At least in the first movie, he tried to make him sort of this guy that he's like, oh, this Batman, and he's still, like, people aren't so sure about Batman at first. People were a bit on the fence about him. Like, this dude dressing around, going around flying with his cape and stuff, that's kind of a bit kooky, you know? So, this time, it's not so much Batman, which is kind of interesting. They took a step back of making Batman the lesser the outsider, and it's mainly, the outsiders are mainly Catwoman and Penguin. Well, not so much Catwoman, but Penguin really feels like the outsider. He's the literal outcast of this movie because of how society kind of treats him and how he was treated as a babe. Well, as a baby, I should say. To clear that up, as a baby, and how he's treated even now. That is a true outcast right there. How he's just judged based on difference and not on his sort of ideals or his mental thoughts or just him as a person, his personality. And I think Danny DeVito brings that super well. Now, is his performance any good or better than Nicholson's Joker? You can't compare the villains because these are two different villains here and two different performances. Jack Nicholson, with his Joker, obviously goes for more of the classic iconic comic book Joker that we all kind of know a little bit, with how he's very funny, but it's very dark humor and he's very psychotic and sort of like that whole fun thing. The Penguin here is nowhere, his origin is nowhere near his comic origin, which is fine. That's fine. You change up a few things. That's perfectly fine for some cases. If it's done well, good for them. That means that they've offered something new and different to the table. If it's done poorly, then it was just not meant to be. This is a performance that was perfect. I don't know about perfect casting, but DeVito really does it good. And this is pretty disturbing and pretty dark for Danny DeVito, because when you think of Danny DeVito, you just think of a lot of his comic things. Like, he's done a lot of comedies, he's done a lot of like cheesy stuff like that. He's done voice work. Like, a lot of like my generation and younger generations are gonna recognize him as the Lorax. He voiced the Lorax in like that Illumination, like 2012, 2011 film of the Lorax. He was in Hercules, so he's got talent right there. But there's also the older crowd might know him from It's Sunny in Philadelphia, or The Simpsons, or Twins. I can't think of anything else, to be honest, in terms of DeVito, because there's been a ton of things he's done. It's kind of like they've been either pretty funny or just at best. So this is definitely a page turner to see DeVito do this, which I did not expect. I liked this Penguin a little bit more. I think on a side note, I feel like the story of him trying to be mayor. I wonder if Gotham's Penguin stole that idea because Gotham, the TV show Gotham, steals the idea of Oswald Cobblepot trying to be mayor and run for mayor. So I wonder if they stole that from 92's Batman Returns. So yeah, I love that. Love DeVito's performance. Keaton's great. Obviously, Keaton's good. I think he's starting to be my favorite Batman again, at least in live action form, because I like Bale. I used to like Ben Affleck. Like I used to put him up above Keaton. Like I used to be like, okay, here's Affleck, here's Keaton, here's Bale in terms of live action. Now it's kind of like I might put Keaton here, then maybe Bale, or flip flop Bale and Affleck. It depends. It's just my opinion has kind of changed with my favorite live action Batman, but big props to the best Batman in the world, Kevin Conroy. But yeah, Keaton really is great. Once again, Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman, though, is really interesting in a good way because it's definitely really bonkers a little bit. Because at first you're like, okay, Michelle Pfeiffer, this sounds good. She was during the 80s, during the 90s, a very attractive, well looked, I guess sort of sexy actress. I wouldn't say that now because she's a talented actress. She was probably a fine woman for her era, but now obviously she's like what? I'm going to take a guess, say 72, maybe even 67. That's my guess, but enough about that. So obviously this sounded probably good on paper. But how she kind of becomes Catwoman, Selina Kyle becomes Catwoman, is very bonkers and it's very dark. And this one definitely tries to be darker, bigger, more bigger is better sort of thing. And that's where sequel syndrome and sequelitis is going to fall into. But we'll talk about that in just one more second. But one thing I do want to say is I like what Michelle Pfeiffer did with Catwoman. And I think what really connects is the sort of like, not symbolism, but how much the relationship of Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman and Michael Keaton's Batman really connect. And both physically, mentally, psychologically, and symbolically. Because I think this is probably the best moments I've seen of the Batman-Catwoman relationship because this explains it all. Because Batman and Catwoman are, in my opinion, one of the best couples, like cartoon couples, comic couples, whatever couples. They're the most iconic couples. And this really cements what makes Batman and Catwoman such a great couple. It's done well in the Arkham series. It's done well in the comics. It's done well in the animated series. This is the key cement point for me of why I love this relationship, is because these two are how they live their sort of mundane lives as sort of like these are our masks. The idea that Michael Keaton's Batman is, he looks at his Bruce Wayne is like in the public eye, how he's like playboy, like fun guy, cool guy, Mr. Cool Guy and everything and whatnot, and finger snapping and lady picking up and everything. That's just in a rouge. And Bruce Wayne, when he's in the public eye, that's like a mask he wears. That is fake. He tries to put on a good smile. But obviously, when he goes home, he's more of the sterner Batman that we all know, the more sterner Bruce Wayne we know. Same goes for Selina a little bit. Selina definitely has a more twisted mind when she's home, when she's more inside and secure from the outside world. And when she's outside, basically in the public, she acts like very like bubbly, a little bit like flirtatious kind of ish, or most likely very like also very shy, because she kind of like hits on Bruce a little bit, but she's very shy and anxious about it. So there's that. And they both connect on the aspect of that when they figure out who they are, that moment of, do we start fighting? I love that line. It's so genuine, and it's such a good, quiet moment for them to kind of pause for a split second before anything happens, because you get this sense of they know, not only do they know who they are, but how the fact that they're in love with each other, but in a way, crime and all sorts of shit kind of keep them in the way of things, and kind of how they're put in this sort of, not society, but how Catwoman is, she's the burglar, she's the crook, she's the criminal, and then Batman is the hero, the Cape Crusader that has to stop her. And does this mean that their lives are they can't work out a relationship because of this? Does this mean that, do they like doing this sort of thing to each other, that one is bad, one's good, one's the yin and the yang to each other? Do they hate it? Do they like it? Is it fun for them? Can they actually have a genuine relationship that involves intimacy and sincerity? Or is it just about the thrill, the chase of wanting the enticement of basically capture, basically the idea of, is this enticing and arousing for Batman to chase Catwoman? Is that the relationship? Or is it more the genuine things that they have? And I'm just speaking about the relationship in general, but this one just really symbolizes, this really brings the whole thing together for me on why I love it. It's mysterious, it's symbolic, it's romantic, but it's dark, and it's very open. The idea of, are they actually a couple? Are they not? Sometimes. So it just, this really cements it to me. So I love that a lot. So getting to, real quick, sequel syndrome and sequelitis. There's two different aspects I call one or the other. So sequel syndrome to me is, how I phrase sequel syndrome is, if a movie tries to be better than the first, or as good as the first, or whether it does it well or it doesn't succeed. So, because the phrase is that obviously sometimes sequels aren't as good as the first films and their predecessors of that. And there's been good sequels, which is great, but unfortunately there's been too many bad sequels in years that you don't have that many good sequels. And luckily I've seen a lot better sequels in recent years, thank goodness to cinema, and just how much technology has changed and how much writing has changed. But there's still those bad sequels that you kind of have the aspect of, either it's not as good as the first, or it's just a bad sequel. This is a great sequel. Is it as good as the first or better? I don't know if it's better, to be honest. And is it as good as the first? Yes. But why it's not better is because it follows sequelitis, which I think, how I say sequelitis is they try and capture, they try and capture lightning in a bottle, meaning they try and do the same thing that they did in the first movie again in the sequel, or they go for, the sequel has to be bigger and bolder, more explosions, more this, more action, more this, more that, more in your face, all this happening sort of thing. So that's sequelitis. Does this have sequelitis? Not a little bit, a tiny bit, because it obviously is going for a more grander scheme, because obviously the visuals, the architect, a lot of the models, the scale models, not scale models, but obviously a lot of the bigger scheme of, I don't want to keep comparing 89 to 92, but you look at 89, Joker, besides the big extravaganza parade he had, he just kind of took Vicky Vale up to this tower, and that was your climax. I'm comparing the climaxes of both these movies, just real quick. So he had Vicky because he was just crazy. He's like, okay, I'm gonna steal you and I'm gonna murder you and do whatever to you. So that was your climax, is that it's all in a tower and Batman's chasing him up there, and then Joker has Vicky, and then that's your big fight. And that's your showdown right there for the most part. It's just the two of them at each other and stuff like that. Not counting the bat chases, the Batmobile chases or anything like that, both in this movie and in 89, over here, this movie, and then 89. But just look at the climax, because both Batmobile chases are really fine and good. So let's just going back to climax. So the climax of Batman Returns has the idea of Penguin wants to murder basically all of Gotham City, or he wants to get rid of all the newborns of Gotham City, only the newborns and firstborns of Gotham, so that way he can say, you abandon, you family, you parents out there, you abandoned your son, you abandoned your son, and you abandoned your son. Everyone abandoned their sons. Get what I'm saying? So he was isolated, abandoned, thrown out, cast out, sort of thing, and he wants that to have the same effect on other children. So he plans to blow up Gotham City using and I do not joke when I say this, that he uses his army of penguins and they're all lining up to march off to Gotham City with their little missiles launched on their backs to destroy Gotham. I can't. It's obviously it makes sense because Penguin has a penguin army. He used robot penguins. It's all in the name and everything. And ironically enough, he teams up with Catwoman, which I think is kind of cool, because I've seen in the past he's worked with Catwoman. Yeah. So, but back to the penguins. As much as it makes sense, it's kind of funny seeing these little penguins like waddle in like with the little missiles, and obviously that's not their intention. So that feels like a bigger, more explosive of a climax. The 89 climax had more of like a smaller budget, not smaller budget, but you look at the scale of things a little bit, and this one definitely tries to up the ante. Whether Burton wanted to do this or not, you definitely get a feel of that. And was it cool? Yeah, it was cool, but is it really worth the idea of whatchamacallit, making it bigger and better? I don't know. But still a great sequel. Definitely has a few bumps, but overall, pretty good, pretty decent. But the main thing, the main important reason why we're here and why Batman Returns of all movies to review during the holidays is, well, it takes place during Christmas. It's in the setting of December. So I'm going out and say this. If Die Hard could be a Christmas movie, so should Batman Returns. Don't change my mind. I could just see it now. And I know so many people that could agree with me or disagree. That's fine. That's your opinion. But I can't take that seriously. That people clarify Die Hard as a Christmas movie. And if that's going to be the case, this should be too. So I'm going to give Batman Returns just a solid A. Maybe an A minus. And there you go. So do you guys think Batman Returns is a Christmas movie? I mean, it kind of should be. But let me know in the comments. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video, please smash the like button. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. I do awesome videos every day, if not every week. I'm gonna see what other Christmas-related videos I'm gonna get within this week and within next week. Look out either next week or the following week. Two top 10 lists. One being top 10 best movies of this year and top 10 worst movies of this year, because I'd like to do the idea of talking about movies that came out this year, both good and bad, and then talk about the new year before the new year happens and before New Year's and before Christmas and all that other stuff. And I don't know if I'll be doing anything like video-wise on Christmas Day, But if you guys want to see Christmas specials, like maybe like a Christmas with me sort of video where like I'm literally at like sitting at my Christmas tree unwrapping presents, let me know. And one last thing, if you ring that bell, make sure you're notified of new videos, new content every day for every week. I'm gonna try and keep this consistency of making videos and reviews and all this other stuff. I'm gonna try and get in some more gaming, but my goal right now before the end of the year is more reviews and then more top 10s. So look out for those 2 top 10s. There will be a Christmas related top 10 video. Maybe it'll be top 12. I have no idea. I'm working on that as we speak. Edit or not, I hope to maybe edit it soon. And hopefully I can get my Adobe Premiere fixed so I can start editing videos and I can upload my video of, I have a video of The Mandalorian I want to talk about, well, the first episode at least, and then I have another top 10 video I'm going to upload hopefully once I get Adobe fixed, all that fun jazz. So look out for all those videos within this year and in the new year, and hope you guys enjoy your holiday break and everything, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.